In this week's drive, we use some funky technology to go nowhere fast. See what those fun Swedes are working on to keep us safe. Find out that what you're sitting on can help when things go wrong. And see how the Americans take the exercise out of golf. All this and more in this week's Drive. We sometimes lose sight of just how much racing cars have changed over the years. So a look through history at the Silver Arrows Mercedes racing team compares the way it was with today's racers. Manfred von Brautich won the 1934 German Grand Prix in his Mercedes at the Nürburgring. The cars were huge, heavy and fearsome 400-horsepower monsters. The drivers, mostly talented amateurs, wealthy playboys out for a laugh, or gritty mechanics determined to win. They'd drive various cars in different classes for little more than glory. 20 years on, and the world is healing after the Second World War. Legendary Juan Manuel Fangio becomes world champion again at the French Grand Prix. The cars look very different, but racing is still fast, dangerous, and the preserve of fearless young men, many of whom lived and died for motor racing. Fast forward another 50 years and Formula One has changed beyond belief. Corporate sponsorship has produced highly paid professional drivers contracted to teams with budgets bigger than those of some small countries. Their cars have changed too, sleekly aerodynamic and as fast as the aerospace industry that spawned them. 80% of the world's racing cars are built in Britain, including the World Championship team, McLaren. Way back when, even the top teams made do with fairly basic amenities. With only 7 races on the calendar, cars were driven about in trucks or on trailers and sent abroad by ship. Drivers would frequently rush across Europe by car to make the grid in time to race. Nowadays, with a calendar that includes 19 races on 5 continents, the high-tech cars are flown around the world. The workshop is recreated at each venue so everyone knows where everything is, no matter where they are. In stark contrast to the modern operating theatre-like engine-building workshops, old-time racing engines were built in rather less sterile environments. Computers have replaced the trained eye and skilled hand of the machinist, turner and millwright. One thing hasn't changed: the need to test and measure the output of engines. The test bed allowed engineers to see what the engine could do before it was put into a car and track tested, usually by the same driver who would be racing it. As we've already seen, modern engineers still test racing engines, but analytical computers have replaced a practiced ear for measuring an engine's state of tune. In addition, modern drivers do relatively little development of the cars. This is usually performed by a separate team. Another place where much development has taken place is in the critical arena of tyres. Once, tyre men had to be able to read the weather, the track surface and their driver's mood to determine which tyres to fit. Fangio famously dedicated one of his victories to a far-sighted Pirelli technician who made sure the maestro had the right rubber to win. Formula One tyres are now strictly regulated, but are still the place where most teams hope to gain an advantage over their rivals. The tread, size and even the life of racing tyres are subject to changes in regulation as officials seek to cut costs and speed. Pit stops in the longer historic races were very different too. Here, 300 litres of volatile alcohol-based fuel is sloshed in from handheld cans as the driver takes a drink and wipes his screen. But the fuel spills and water is needed in a hurry. Alcohol fuel can cause injury without even igniting, and it burns with an invisible flame. In contrast, today's cars burn ordinary petrol, yet service crews are well protected. All 4 wheels can be changed in 6 seconds or less, and fuel is squirted into the tanks at a measured 12 litres per second. Computers may be the key to success nowadays, but despite two-way radio communications and data telemetry, handheld pitboards are still used, and so are flags. Drivers still need to be able to read information as they flash past the pits, focusing both on the road ahead and the little wooden sign beside the track. Today's drivers have a host of technicians who provide information second by second. They are warned of rivals, incidents, changes to the track or weather, and briefed about their standings. Computers overlay data lap by lap to see where a tenth or a hundredth of a second might be gained. Things were not always so technical. There was a time when dedicated mechanics would go to great lengths to make vital adjustments. Surely one of the reasons that historic racing continues to be so popular all around the world, as enthusiasts keep alive the races from bygone years. It won't be nearly so easy for weekend racers of the future to maintain today's cars. Without a bank of computers, they won't even start, and many parts, carefully crafted in carbon fibre and other high-tech materials, have a very finite life and won't be readily available. Of course, driver safety is an arena where technology has really improved. Gone for good are the thin cotton overalls and linen caps, although, interestingly, detachable steering wheels have endured. Many racing drivers died before a revolution in driver safety came about. Even 5-time world champion Fangio often raced in slacks and a t-shirt. Look, Ma, no hands. 3-time world champ Jackie Stewart initiated many improvements to driver safety, such as tougher cars and non-spill fuel cells. Today's gladiators wear layers of flame-resistant materials, almost indestructible helmets, and the latest innovation, the head and neck support, or HANDS, designed to limit head movement in a crash. Compare the very visible driver in his wide-open cockpit to the modern pilot buried deep in his. Happily, much of the 70 years of the Mercedes Silver Arrows have been preserved at the factory's museum. The long racing history of Daimler-Benz can be divided into 3 main sections. The period before the First World War saw the triple victory of Mercedes cars in the 1914 ACF Grand Prix. Between the wars, the 1930s saw the 750 kilo and the 3-litre categories dominated by Mercedes, while the 1950s were also a golden era for 2.5-litre normally aspirated cars. The 1934 car was a supercharged straight 8, and by 1937 its 5.6-litre engine was putting out 600 horsepower, and drivers like von Rautich, Rudolf Caracciola and Hermann Lang became household names. After the war, the team didn't enter racing again until 1952, and Fangio was soon at the front of the field. Out of 15 races over 2 years, the W196 scored 12 wins, including 7 double podiums, 1 top 3 and even a top 4 finish at the 1955 British Grand Prix. The last Mercedes Formula One drivers' champion was Mika Hakkinen in 1999. The salt flats of Bonneville are like nowhere on Earth. It's a place so barren that not even the simplest life can exist. Bonneville is a stark, alien wilderness and a great place to take pictures.
We're here doing a photo shoot with Hannes Schmidt here on the salt flats, which is pretty cool. This is a venue that I think everyone's heard of that's into motor racing.
I was expecting completely white Salt Lake Desert with blue sky. It's just completely flooded.
This is like magic. Never seen anything like this in my life before. Well, it's not what we wanted, but...
This is a very, very spectacular scenery, and reflection of the water is just absolutely fantastic.
Bonneville isn't usually under 2 inches of water, but the shoot went ahead anyway.
This is where the land speed record has been held for many years, because it's so flat and it goes on for miles.
Hate to think what all that corrosive salt did to the BAR, even without an engine.
First time doing a fashion shoot for me. It's exciting, the whole image thing, and to have an image is very important in Formula One, so it's definitely something I'm into, yeah.
There's a lot of really fun clothes here. You know, stuff that I wouldn't go into a shop and pick out to try on. But it's some cool stuff, and we've had some really cool shots with some really old style motorhomes and obviously the car.
Normally you don't get so much clothing where they're very, very unique clothing, but I do get in here with Hannes, and I really enjoyed it.
Hannes wanted to capture the bleak majesty as well as Bonneville's motorsport heritage.
They were really great. Everybody on the set was like fantastic, you know. Everybody gave their best. I think we got amazing pictures today.
This is the 4th shoot Hannes has done with the team, but this time he used BAR's entire driver lineup. Regular race pilots Jenson Button and Takuma Sato were joined by test drivers Anthony Davidson and Enrique Benoldi for the first time.
this is a great team. They're not only photogenic, they are personalities. They're great guys, and it's wonderful to work with them.
Just to prove that there are some engineering frontiers still waiting to be challenged, Jeep recently unveiled a very unproduction-ready design exercise, the Jeep Hurricane, a highly conceptual dune buggy-like off-roader. And as if turning on a dime isn't enough, the Hurricane gets not one, but two Hemi V8 engines. One forward-facing Hemi up front and a second rearward-facing Hemi at the rear. Both send their power to a central transfer case, which distributes the torque to the front and rear split axles.
Why such an extreme is because this fulfills the third of our special, unique, secret concepts. You could say exactly the same about the Tomahawk, you could say the same about the ME412. Our job here was to come up with something outrageous, to come up with something, though, that was totally functional, and something that gives somebody something to talk about and so on, and I think we've done that.
Chrysler says that the Hurricane is the most manoeuvrable, most capable and most powerful 4x4 ever built, demonstrating their creative and mechanical expertise. The vehicle has 360 millimeters of ground clearance and incredible approach and departure angles of 64 and 86 degrees respectively. These are nearly vertical angles. Combined with metre-tall tyres, there isn't much the Hurricane can't climb. The vehicle features a turn radius of 0, so it can turn in its own length, thanks to skid steer capability and toe steer, the ability to turn both front and rear tyres inwards. In addition, the king of the Jeeps features two modes of automated four-wheel steering. The first sees the rear wheels turning in the opposite direction to the front to reduce the turning circle, and the second mode is an innovation targeted at off-road drivers. The vehicle can turn all four wheels in the same direction, crab style. This allows the vehicle to move sideways without changing the direction the vehicle is pointing. Can you have responsible excess? Jeep equipped both Hemi engines with a multi-displacement system. Depending on the driver's needs, the Hurricane can be powered by 4, 8, 12 or 16 cylinders. So what some might think of as an environmental terrorist becomes an environmental sweetheart. With two engines, the Hurricane can blast from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in less than 5 seconds. The one-piece body is made of carbon fiber and the suspension and powertrain mount to it. An aluminium spine runs the length of the body as a skid plate. Will we see it on sale soon? Don't hold your breath. Today's traffic is heavier and travels faster than ever before, and every year cars are getting more and more technically advanced. However, humans haven't changed too much in the 100-odd years since motorcars first scared the horses.
If you look at the accident statistics, it's a clear message that most of the accidents are caused by driver mistakes. And so with the new sensors and new computer technology that is available now, we can actually help the driver in these rare but critical situations.
The fast pace of development in computer technology and highly efficient and compact electronic components opens the doors to many new opportunities for car makers like Volvo to develop new ways to help drivers keep up. Bliss, a system that's already in production, is an information device that covers the vehicle's blind spots like extra eyes, consisting of a digital camera placed in each rearview mirror. A red light inside indicates there's a vehicle in the blind spot. The basic idea is that an intelligent car that thinks and responds faster than the driver in critical situations warns the driver of potential risks. A number of systems exist already, integrated or planned for forthcoming models, for safety concerning the car, the driver and the traffic situation. Adaptive Cruise Control is an adjustable speed control system that helps keep both speed and the distance between vehicles constant in an uneven traffic flow. A radar sensor monitors the distance to the vehicle ahead and adjusts speed accordingly. An even more active system is designed to prevent one of the most common traffic collisions and minimize the effect of whiplash-caused injuries.
If you talk about rear-end collisions, that's approximately 30% of the reported accidents. In these cases, drivers doing mistakes, they don't brake, for instance. In 50% of the rear-end collisions, the driver wouldn't brake at all. So what we're trying to do is to develop a system that helps him to realize that an accident is going to happen and give him a warning. And if he's not responding to that warning, we will turn on the brakes autonomously to lessen the severity of the accident.
Many collisions occur when the car is driven off the road. To keep the vehicle in its lane, the car has a camera that keeps track of the vehicle's position. If the driver's attention wanders and the vehicles move out of the lane markings, a warning buzzer sounds. If the driver doesn't respond to the buzzer, the system reacts, helping to steer the car back into its lane. But the aim is to alert the driver to keep the vehicle there himself. Using both camera and radar, an additional function monitors oncoming traffic. If the driver crosses the centerline markers and doesn't respond to the buzzer, the system reacts by applying additional steering effort to get the car back into the intended lane. So, a car which almost thinks for itself, but isn't there a risk that the car could take over and make the wrong decisions?
Of course, there are risks with that, but we are striving not to make the driver rely on the systems. The systems should warn only in very critical situations so that the driver will not get used to respond to the warning, and it will be a rare incident that he has a warning, and only in very, very severe cases.
A new international test ranks all models of Volvo cars best concerning whiplash protection. The test was made by international insurers Whiplash Prevention Group, and Volvo was the only manufacturer to have their entire range achieve a best-in-class rating. 208 front seats were tested in the US and in Europe. Whiplash injuries are the most frequent traffic injury today, causing considerable cost and suffering, and reducing this would be a great achievement. Whiplash. This is what happens to your body when your car is hit from behind. The automotive industry is working hard to find a solution that protects you from this kind of injury that's growing and growing fast.
Over the last 20 years, there's been an enormous increase in this area.
Can you say something about how many people that are injured in Sweden?
I think around 30,000 persons go to the emergency clinic and present some problem from the neck, but it's 20,000 that has real problems, and these 20,000, approximately 1,000 to 1,500 get long-term consequences from it.
Can you do anything to protect yourself from this?
As we now have some protective system, as for example the Volvo Whips chair, I think you should use a car that has such equipment, safety equipment. That's my idea, that to what you can do yourself, to have a car with this system.
University research is helping a lot. This is Lotta Jakobsen, who works at Volvo. She has a PhD in traffic safety, and the results of her research helped create the Volvo Whips system.
Whips is designed to give a very even and good support for the occupant. This is achieved by having a good head restraint design as well as a good design of the seat backrest characteristics, together with absorption of energy, like if you catch a ball, you want to do that in a soft way, And we have a mechanism in the whip seat to enable the seat backrest to move with the occupant rearward relative to the seat cushion. We have estimated our whip system as compared to our prior car seats to be very significant, both for reducing initial neck pain, but also persistent problems, problems lasting more than 1 year. And our study has been supported by 2 independent studies as well.
Can you say anything about the costs?
Yes, in Sweden we have calculated that 2 billion Swedish crowns is the estimated yearly cost today for the whiplash-related injuries. But in the future, all the whiplash-related injuries that occur 1 year in the early 21st century, they will cost 4 billion Swedish kronor in the future, so the costs will double. And this is because there are many more accidents happening today than, say, 10 years ago, and also because the people who are in these accidents are fairly young, and therefore the costs to help them get back into the workforce and so forth will be very high.
We must know more about it, more resources for research, so we can see what's happening in the neck.
And finally, after making a splash nearly 4 years ago when they unveiled their much-anticipated two-wheeled human transporter, Segway has launched new models of its curious scooter-like machine. One is called the Segway Cross Transporter, or XT for short. It's designed to go off the beaten track and into the woods. It features large, soft tyres for greater ground clearance and traction, and newly designed software.
I've taken it on some pretty extreme trails. I'd say just about anywhere an average mountain biker can go, it would go. Certainly if you're an extreme mountain biker, you can probably find some places you wouldn't want to take that product. Fire roads are great, trails. National Park uses the product today, the normal HT product line. We think there's an expansion opportunity there. I can see uses in things like agriculture, ecotourism, you name it on down the line. It's a very eco-friendly product. No emissions, no two-stroke kind of noise and pollution that comes from that. We think it'll be good in those types of environments. It'll let you leave work early, get around to golf in before it gets dark. For the hardcore golfers that come out first off the tee in the morning, then get the round in, get back home on a Saturday. So really speeding up play is one. The other is, frankly, it's just a lot of fun to ride. I mean, the Segway HT is fun to ride anyway. Imagine combining that with golf. You're kind of doing 2 leisure things all at one time. It's a blast. As to whether the hype of changing cities in 5 to 10 years, it's very difficult to do. You can't change a city over a decade typically. It takes many decades. And so we don't think we're off our long-term plans, and we have a good short-term business right now. We're kind of happy with the trajectory we're on.
Segway uses gyroscopes and computers to mimic human balance. Users lean forward to move forward, lean back to reverse. In New York's Times Square, it got mixed reviews.
I would try one of those on a golf course, definitely, especially if everybody else on the golf course had one. That would be nice.
I feel that we need to get our exercise, and we need to do as much on our own as possible instead of getting mechanized.
Right now it's a novelty, but I think that this is something that could be very beneficial for a variety of areas of businesses or activities, and I think it would catch on.
1 year. 1 year it's trendy, and then it's out again. And I think would be the same with that.
Trendy or not, the Segway comes with a hefty price tag. The XT is $5,000 US and the GT $500 more. But at least you won't get your feet wet.
It's fantastic.
So, even if you were expecting something altogether much drier on your first visit to Bonneville, so you stay on track and up to speed, make sure you catch next week's Drive.